But first, I'm joined by the independent statistician, Jamie Jenkins, to find out what may sway the votes at the local elections on Thursday. Jamie, I'm surprised I said it. I'm not going to repeat it. I never say statistician. I've done it. Well, I want to hear... Well, we often hear about local elections being fought on local issues, but what things specifically influence the way people actually vote?
Yeah, afternoon. I think probably worth just reminding people that for a general election, you normally get about 67% turnout nationally across the country. And for local elections, in part because you don't see live debates with the Prime Minister and the opposition parties kind of all over the TV and then it's kind of on the news day in, day out. You don't get such the kind of turnout. Last time we had about 34%. So it's going to be the vast majority of people aren't probably going to turn out. I'd encourage people to go out and vote. I think it is worth reminding people, as you've been doing on the show, that these are about local issues. What you're trying to do here is elect people to kind of represent on local councils or the community councils. So it is all about local issues. People who are promising that through election material that they can sort the cost of living crisis specifically by taxing, for example, energy companies. These aren't the powers that local authorities have. But you can't get away, Nana, from the Partygate scandals, the kind of this talk about what was going on with the Labour Party in the north in Durham last year. These issues will cut through because it'll go one or two ways. There'll be some people think I'm not going to bother voting. And it might be that some people who were a Tory or a Labour voter in the past might have thought, well, actually, I'm going to go and vote for somebody else. So I'd encourage the kind of the viewers to the show to look at what material you've got, think of the local issues and who's going to basically best represent what you think.
So in terms of the statistics then, because Boris Johnson made this wonderful speech about how if you want your council to do well, you're better off voting for a Conservative council because those ones do better. Does that replay in the statistics?
Well, what you get is obviously it varies significantly across the country, and it's based on historical stuff as well, Nala, because council tax is set obviously locally. Some councils have got a higher council tax in one area than you've got in another area, and it depends on how the finances of the councils have been run over the years. And so I think that's going to be a critical part of all of this. What you've got to kind of remember as well, that these do have an impact on national elections as well, because say, for example, whichever party has a good evening at the local elections and get more and more people elected, then that's kind of more activists that can help support the party for the national elections as well. So that's why they are quite important to these parties in terms of putting things forward. You tend to find for the local elections as well, when you start looking at the kind of the candidacies, you do get a lot more kind of independent candidates for these, because obviously they're about people who are in the heart of their communities fighting for those things. And remember, the things that do really come up when it comes to the local issues are things, and remember what the local authority do. They obviously provide the services such as gyms, leisure centres, things like the kind of the libraries that you've got in there, and social care is a big part of it as well. So they are provided by the local areas. So I think those are the factors that are going to sway it. Generally, the barometer of what's been going on nationally with the kind of the main parties will have a big impact. But you sometimes get, if some people are frustrated because things were promised in the last 3 or 4 years in a local area and they haven't been delivered, that can get people out to try and go and vote, to try and make some changes.
So roughly then, so you do statistics, right? So I'm just wondering, in terms of numbers-wise, percentage-wise, what is it predicted that the Conservative Party will lose or the Labour Party gain, or vice versa? What are they suggesting?
Well, the thing is with these, Nana, they can change quite dramatically overnight. So the kind of the stuff that's been coming out with Keir Starmer and having pizzas and beers in the north could have an impact there. I think the important thing is that you normally find in these kind of elections that the current government, and remember Boris won the general election in 2019, you normally find the mid-term during kind of a national government that they sometimes get people who lose some support because they're halfway through their term, and they tend to find that the opposition parties do well. But the last local elections were fought actually when Theresa May was in power, and the Labour Party did pretty well there. So it's going to be difficult potentially to build on what the Labour Party did last time. But with the way the current things are going on at the moment, you might see the Lib Dems creep through and pick up a lot of local councils, and they do seem to be doing pretty well in Tory areas when we've had some local elections over the last couple of years where there's been some kind of need for those local elections. So they might creep in. And remember, Boris won kind of well in the north in those kind of all those old Labour seats in the general election. Whether or not those councils will go from Labour to Tory, I very much doubt. So it's going to be a very interesting way. It's very difficult to predict this one because there's so much change over the last couple of years.